Smart Shorties with Mr. Craig. Hi guys and gals, Mr. Craig here for a Art Smart Shorty with Mr. Craig. These are going to be quick little lessons. We've been working really super hard on our comic pages and trying to get as much of that done as we possibly can. Hopefully there's at least 10 of you that are working on that, because I really would love to see another chapter in our graphic novel dedicated to that. It would be amazing. It would be amazing. It's so awesome that I can't even say amazing loud. Amazing. We are now working on continuing what we did last week, where we drew a face, a human face, and we kind of learned about how the eyes are halfway down, the nose is halfway down from there, and the mouth is halfway down from there, and then the divot is halfway down from there. Ears go from our eyeballs to our mouth. And now let's talk a little bit about hair. And hair is tricky. Hair is a tricky thing. It actually is looks like a shape. You want to start thinking about it as a basic shape. And again, we're talking about our elements of design. Shape is an element of design. We're going to start applying all these different elements together. So we got points, we got shapes, we got volume, we've got form, we've got space that we're working with, and textures that we can create the illusion of. And then I'm only using black and white right now, but you can also apply some color on what you're creating. That's always really cool when you're doing that. I did recently a self-portrait using pen and ink and a brush. Okay, this thing right here took me a couple of hours to draw, and I used a photograph of myself as reference to kind of help me get some of the key lines. And then all that line work and all that brush work was done using an ink brush. Let me show you it. This brush right here, a rubber brush. Isn't that crazy? But it's not a rubber brush. It's a very expensive brush, and it was working super great all night except till the end. Right at the end, it was starting to get clogged up, and no matter what I did, I was having a hard time cleaning it. But when we're studying faces, and like for me, I really studied the folds in my eyes and how that works, and then all of the texture in my beard. It took forever. But it's ultimately a shape. Even though my hair is oftentimes a knotted mess, and even when I try to take care of it, it becomes a separate shape. So I'm going to think about that as a shape here on this guy's head, and I'm making just a very light guideline to kind of create him. And if I'm doing a boy or a girl, that you kind of can look at the hair and look at the faces and the features and just see the subtle differences that it takes in order to make the difference between a boy and a girl. Traditionally in comics, when you're drawing a male or a female, the men could have a more rugged look, and you could use more lines on their face to get more of that wrinkles and some of that stuff. And women, you didn't want to put a lot of wrinkles on their faces. You wanted to work with a beauty and try to have as few lines as necessary to make them look stunning. And times and things are changing now too, where we're seeing some of the line work in a woman's faces change a little bit, but it's still pretty simple. It's still cleaner than what you would see on a male face traditionally. So we're also at the top of the head here. If I look at this line, at the top of the head, I want to try to think about hair that goes over the skull. Our hair is not attached to our skull in little strips. Actually it is, but it's not stuck and glued onto us so hard. It comes up from our skull just a little bit, so we can think about it and add a little bit of distance to it, especially like maybe on the sides. It goes a little wider, and maybe I want to get fancy and he's got a little bit of a poof on one side. Let's give him a poof on both sides, because then he'd look funny. Look like the Witch Boy from a different comic book. All right, so here we've got a little bit of a shape for the hair, and now all the hair is done. Most hair is in single pieces of single lines of hair. So you want to use your tools to kind of capture some of that. So it's like I'm going to make a lot of individual lines to kind of capture what I want that hair to look like. And you can also do that to kind of imply some reflection and like where the light is hitting the hair. So you can kind of leave an area where there's no lines. Like right here, I'm going to do that at the top of the head. I'm going to go up to a certain point, and right there it's going to stop. And then I'm going to pick up from that spot down here a little bit further, and maybe go up to that point, and leaving this reflective part of light through the middle, value change there ultimately, so that we can see this reflection of light at the top of his head. We'll do that on the opposite side as well, so that we can kind of get this, like he's got almost like a slicked hairstyle. Slicked, just a little dollop, dippity-doo, dippity-doo. He's got a little haircut, dippity-doo, with a little bit of sheen and shine like that. All right, so here we go. And yes, that is a crazy haircut, I know. And dippity-doo was an old product, so I'm not making that up. It's something that people would use to slick their hair. Next, we're going to think about where our necks are. And with this guy, if I give him a super thick neck, he's going to look like he's a man. If I give him a really tiny neck, he's going to look like he's a boy. So this, I'm going to try and make it a middle. He's maybe a teenager. And I can go in here. And you can also then add some details in there as far as like maybe he's got some the light on this side of his face is a little bit differently, and start adding some shading on there where the light would be coming from maybe this area or maybe even this area, so that he's got a little bit of light underneath his nose that kind of creates a shadow, and some of his expression lines on his face. And a lot of times if you're shading on a face, try not to go with sharp lines. Try to do that as gently as you possibly can, because the skin on people's faces is just the slightest change of tone can really imply a lot. Whereas if you have a lot harsh light, that sometimes works, because sometimes you want to create something that's in a really creepy mood or something like that. And the only way to get that mood lighting is to have dramatic light, where the light is hard and sharp. And in this particular case, I want to try to get maybe a beauty light where it's a little bit softer change of tone. Whereas if I wanted him to look like he was waiting in the shadows to get a message from a mysterious person, you could kind of go much darker and much more direct. Now, when we are talking about expression, gang, that's key. And I want you to kind of take a look at what can happen if I just take a face and some eyes and just a no expression, roughly no expression there. And now if I make the eyebrows kind of come up from the side, now that person looks worried. If I take that same circle and make the eyes come down, now he's mad, angry. And the same thing applies with faces that kind of, let's see here, where he's just kind of, his eyebrows are up a little bit higher. Now he's curious. So all these different things are ways of telling the same face, the same basic face, but giving it expression. And now if I can combine this, the eyebrows, let's take the angry face. And now with a mouth, let's make him smiling. Ooh, and now all of a sudden he might be thinking evil thoughts, okay? So, or he might have just stolen a cookie. I don't know. Now let's make an angry face with a sad mouth. And now he's upset for a different reason. We can kind of see, we're almost sympathetic to this guy. This guy here, there's no sympathy whatsoever. There's sympathy for that guy. He's sad too. He's got a right to be mad. And here we go. Here is an eyeballs, and let's make a sad face this time. And let's give him a smile though. Uh-oh, now he's smiling. He's sad, he's worried, and he's smiling. Maybe he needs to get to the bathroom fast. It's time for him to use the bathroom. I don't know, that could be. Here we have sad face with a sad mouth. And now that's like way sadder than this guy. This guy we're feeling very sympathetic for. So expression can be done using those eyebrows and using the mouth, and really tell a lot about how a person is feeling in the comics that you create. So use those as tools. So gang, this has been Art Smart Shorty with Mr. Craig, and I hope that you picked up some tips on how to draw people. We'll maybe talk a little bit in the future about how to lay out proportions for the human body. That's a tricky one. That might take more time. Well, we'll see. And these are things that you guys can practice on your own and study on your own as well, where you can actually look at different people who are out in public and just kind of study them and see how their eyes work and how their folds work. Although don't stare at them too much, they'll think you're weird. And it's kind of, it might be harder than ever to see people in public because we're wearing masks. Think about that for a second. That's very interesting. I didn't think about that. But anyways, Mr. Craig here for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay. Hope you guys are learning things. Hope you guys are staying creative and artistic and getting some of your own creations done and staying healthy, both mentally and physically. Mentally and physically. Have a great day, gang.